says you got to lead a bunch of laps to win the race? Certainly not Mark Martin. The day after his improbable fuel mileage win at Michigan International Speedway, NASCAR Now is here to break it down.
Jimmy Johnson's off the throttle. He may be out of fuel heading down to turn number 1.
Here comes Greg Biffle. Biffle around the outside lane. Final lap at Michigan. It is Greg Biffle with the lead. Mark Martin's catching Greg Biffle. Biffle's out of gas. Here comes Martin to the bottom of the racetrack. Martin takes the lead in turn number 3.
Mark Martin is going to win for the 3rd time this year.
He only led all laps to score his 3rd win of the season. It came courtesy of Greg Biffle and Jimmy Johnson, who ran out and finished 5th and 22nd, respectively. Jeff Gordon came from the back. He scored his 3rd runner-up finish of the season. And we got lots more to talk about on this edition of NASCAR Now. Welcome to NASCAR Now, coming to you from inside the Home Depot garage. I'm Nicole Mansky, and I'm joined today by 3 NASCAR Now analysts, 4 said Mike Wallace and Ricky Craven. Now, all 3 of you have won races in your careers, but have you ever won a fuel mileage race?
I lost a fuel mileage race.
Okay, that counts, kind of, in a backwards way. What about you?
I think there were a few, but never as close as that.
No, never on the last lap either. That was exciting this weekend.
And the other exciting part was Mark Martin started this race not near the front of the field. He had to work at this one. He started in 32nd. Instead, after Friday qualifying, he felt lucky that Rick Hendrick did not fire him after his dismal qualifying effort. By lap 90, though, he's fighting to get into the top 10. Here he is taking on Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, Mark Martin was really strong in the beginning of this race, running in the front.
Lap 31, picking off Juan Pablo Montoya from the top 10 to now he's in the top 3.
He had a presence all day, but it really wasn't until the end that he started to show a little muscle.
And how about the last lap? This is when it gets really good. Jimmy Johnson going to run out of fuel on the front stretch. Then Greg Biffle takes the lead. He runs out on the back stretch. And ladies and gentlemen, Mark Martin goes on to take win number 3 of the season.
I saved gas from the very beginning. We were in a hole on the points because we've had so many misfortunes this year, and I just couldn't afford to race those guys. I couldn't save gas and run their pace both, so you know I opted to try to make sure I made it to the end, and you know I wasn't expecting to win. I was expecting to try to make it, and the two worked together today. It was just perfect.
We would have made it, but the 48 came up there and put pressure on us, and you know I felt like I had a faster car than the 48, but I knew running that pace we weren't going to make it, so I backed it off a little bit, and I saw that the 48 was really loose, and I asked Irwin, you know, if I could run him down because I think I can beat him, and he said go for it, and you know, so it was only 3 laps, but you know, if I would have let the 48 go, if I'd have stayed on my program, I'd have made it no problem. I don't know if I'd have beat the 5 though, because I'd have had to pick it up when he came along. But overall, it was a good run for us. Really excited about how our Ford cars ran up here in Michigan. It's unfortunate that it came down to that. I think we had a really good car for today.
You know, I'm trying to look at the bright side of things because we had such a dominant car and passed 2nd and 3rd and went up to get the lead. And it's unfortunate we ran out of gas. You know, that's how it is. I guess if we would have held back, we would have finished 2nd or 3rd, and I guess maybe the 16 would have run out and I still would have won. But I can't be disappointed with the fuel. The 48 car, myself, whatever it is, we don't get the best fuel mileage, and we're always fast. So I'll take being fast and lose some every now and then to fuel mileage.
Man, it's fuel mileage racing. I mean, it's it's a tough balance. You've got to try to push it as hard as you can, and you know, just kind of hope the chips fall where they may. The pace slowed down a lot that last run, so we were kind of hoping that was going to help our fuel mileage. Unfortunately, the car was loose on top of that, which actually you used more fuel at that point, so we ended up getting a little bit worse mileage than what we thought. But, I mean, ultimately we figured we were going to be about a lap short, but really thought if we got ahead of the 16, we might be able to hang on to it.
This is the 4th time in 2009 that a driver has led the most laps in a race, only to finish 20th or worse. Each time, that driver's been either Kyle Busch or Jimmy Johnson. Busch has the worst finish by a driver who led the most laps. He was 41st in the Daytona 500. Now, Johnson dominated this race. He led 146 of the 200 laps. For the most part, he pulled away from the other drivers. How does it feel to be him today?
It's an empty feeling. Literally. Well, the fact is...
Would it be like a quart empty or what?
Yeah, well, a cup empty. But
maybe a lap and a half empty?
Yeah.
It's a hollow victory, but the fact that he's run so well at Dover, Pocono, and then Michigan will carry on throughout the summer. Again, a hollow victory, but when you're that fast at 3 different disciplines of racetracks, it works for you.
Well, he probably doesn't feel this way today, but I'd rather run up front, lead the race to the last lap, and then run out of gas instead of running about 25th all day and nobody knows you're even in the race. So all in all, probably very disappointed, but got to be elated with their, performance.
And that is what he said. But Mark Martin implied that because Jimmy Johnson is securely in the chase, that he could take more risks. Mark said, if I was in that position, I also probably would have run out of fuel. Because of your points position, how much flexibility do you have if you're higher in the points or lower in the points?
Well, Mark Martin was 13th in the points coming into this race, and the way the points are, you need to be in the chase before you start racing really hard. So Mark Martin used all his experience and just ran there, and he said, I'm going to settle for 3rd, get the points, and get into the top 12 this weekend. But he got lucky. It worked for him.
Yeah, and I think that they make a great point. Jimmy Johnson, the difference between finishing 2nd and 22nd is almost irrelevant as long as you're in the chase. Clearly is. He was going for the 10 points.
For the 2nd straight week, this is the other interesting dynamic here. The 48 has run out of fuel in the closing laps. I dare say this, but let's play a little role play here. Mike, you're Jimmy Johnson. What are you saying to Chad Knaus today?
Well, today it's just like, Chad, what do we need to do to get more fuel mileage? Is there something I need to do? And Chad's going, Jimmy, look, I give you a fast car. You can't have fuel mileage and you can't have speed. Pick whatever you want. We'll work on it. We're still doing well, and let's make the best of it.
And the fact is, these two are exceptional when it comes to communication. If something was missing, maybe just a little bit of communication. First time I've seen it. And the fact is, when Chad said to Jimmy, look, you got to get by the 5. Don't concern yourself with the 16. I heard it. Maybe Jimmy didn't hear it quite as clear, but I think that's the message.
I don't think it was any big deal. I'd say, Chad, thank you for the fast car, because once again, Jimmy Johnson dominated the whole race, so it gives him a lot of confidence going into the chase to get that 4th championship.
I saw your faces when we were listening to the Greg Biffle sound. Greg Biffle flat out said, Jimmy Johnson baited me into running out of fuel. Yeah. You guys aren't buying it.
Well, Greg Biffle's an incredible talent, and Greg, don't blame it on Jimmy Johnson. You're driving that car. Yes, he come up there and he challenged you, but you're the guy that stood on the throttle. And, okay, he did bait you. It made a great race. What are you going to say?
It was Jimmy Johnson's fault. Greg Biffle wanted to win that race, and if Jimmy Johnson didn't have the speed to get up there and challenge him, Greg Biffle would have stayed on his program and would have made it. But he didn't. He wanted to win, so he said all or nothing.
When's the last time a crew chief said to either one of you, all right, just back off, and you're running 2nd? Instinctively, it's almost impossible to pull the reins back on a driver within 10 laps to go running 2nd.
If I had a chance to win one of these races, there's no way I'd back off. I would have run out of gas with 5 to go.
This weekend closely. I'm going to critique you. If you're running 2nd, it's fuel.
But what if if you don't back off, you're going to run out of fuel, like you said?
But you don't know that.
You're running for points at this point.
Well, they're running for those bonus points. Mark Martin was running for the points to get into the chase. Greg Biffle wants to win a race. He knows he's going to make the chase. Jimmy Johnson for sure is going to make the chase, so they're going for wins.
Well, you got to be I was a little confused listening to the race because Biffle's crew chief gave him some number with a few laps to go. Save us 2, or you saved us 2, give me 25%. I was confused.
Was a little bit unclear.
I will agree with that. There wasn't as much urgency, in my opinion, from the crew chiefs as there was a week earlier at Pocono.
I disagree, though. I disagree, because Chad Knaus came on the radio and says, go run hard, go up there and get him. We got plenty of fuel.
Well, I thought he said, go past the 5 and don't concern yourself with the 16.
All right. Pulling an end to this conversation, because Mark Martin led just 1 lap Sunday. That does not make him unique. We've seen a few improbable wins this season, like this one right here from Brad Keselowski in just his 5th start in the Cup Series. It also led to that memorable wreck. David Rudiman scored his first Cup win in the rain-shortened Coke 600 thanks to his crew chief not bringing him in as the rains were coming. Tony Stewart scored his first win as a driver-owner at Pocono by working his way from the very back to the very front. And, of course, he also mastered the art of saving fuel. And then, of course, there was Mark Martin. He found himself in victory lane after Jimmy Johnson and Greg Biffle ran out of fuel. And we want to know, which driver scored the most improbable win of the season? In your opinion, was it Keselowski at Talladega? Was it Ruderman in Charlotte, Tony Stewart in Pocono, or Mark Martin in his fuel mileage win in Michigan? Log on to ESPN.com. Tell us what you think. We will show your results at the end of the show. Right now, let's go under the hood. Jeff Gordon almost pulled a Tony Stewart at Pocono, going from the very back to the very front. Why he says, Gordon, he's thrilled with second. Then it was a record-setting weekend for Joey Logano in Kentucky. Why his second win at the track sets him apart from every other Nationwide Series driver. And after a fiery crash this weekend, Johnny Benson is on the mend. We will update his condition coming up.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Bear Aspirin. Bear, expect wonders.
From Mark Martin to the rest of the field, Jeff Gordon, he would start at the rear of the fields after an engine change in Friday practice. Spent the day steadily moving to the front, and he was able to stretch his fuel mileage. He would finish second at Michigan.
Felt like I had enough to do a burnout if we'd have won the race, but it was still a great finish for us. I mean, we had a good car to be able to come from that far back to the front, as well as you know, we were able to get it done on fuel mileage at the end as well. I mean, we set the car up really free at the beginning to be able to drive through traffic, and it worked until I got to about 20th. And then we had to start really tightening the car. We didn't have the speed that some of the guys in front of us did, but you know, we were going to come home with a top 5, and then it came down to fuel mileage, and I was pretty sure those first two guys were pushing pretty hard. And it was really no surprise to see him run out. I hated it for those guys, but congratulations to Mark. He played it smart. You know, Alan and him make a great team, and you know, I'm proud that Hendrick Motorsports brought it home.
Moving on to Denny Hamlin, he started 14th, and unlike last week at Pocono, he ran most of the day, and he ran much of the day in the top 10. After the final pit stop, he came out actually in second, but immediately went into fuel-saving mode. Denny Hamlin finished third.
Yeah, it's man, I hate running like that, but it's what you have to do to come to the end. And just proud of our whole FedEx Express team. We worked on fuel mileage a little bit during testing at other racetracks, and it paid off here at Michigan. But for the most part, it was a solid day. We had a top 4 or 5 car all day, and you know, it paid off at the end. I kicked myself for not running harder because I was rolling the 5 in pretty big at the end. But I think it was just a bait thing, you know. It's like I think the 16 baited the 48 to go and get them, and they ended up both running out of fuel. So I think, you know, we were all in the same boat there. It's just who wanted to risk winning the race versus finishing.
Carl Edwards started the day in 29th, also at the back of the field, and at some point during the day, Edwards said, I had a really good car. He steadily moved up, and just like he did at Pocono, he stretched his fuel. Edwards finished 4th.
You know, Fords get the best fuel mileage in the world, you know, on the street, and we can usually do it here at the racetrack. Greg was just racing so hard, and man, I wanted to have a Ford in victory lane. I knew this Aflac Fusion wasn't good enough, but we still got a good finish out of it. And my guys did a good job, and we got something we can build on. I don't know how close we were. I shut it off so we could check, you know, but I'm sure we were good. You know, we usually have pretty good fuel mileage with these Fords, but our Aflac Fusion was about a 8th place car today, so to come home 4th is good. My heart just aches for Greg, man. He did a good job and just half a lap short.
Ricky, I'm going to start with you because during that Denny Hamlin sound, you were smirking. Denny Hamlin said, coulda, woulda, shoulda. I should have pushed harder. How do you know you can or you can't?
Because fuel mileage races do this to you, okay? Greg Biffle ran too hard. Denny Hamlin didn't run hard enough. Fuel mileage races drive you crazy, and that's what you hear.
And some drivers say, yes, I love to do these kinds of races. Carl Edwards is one of them. Denny Hamlin hates it. What's the difference?
Well, I think it just amounts to the difference of one car running the way it does in regards to fuel mileage. Denny Hamlin goes, I don't like running this race. It's very confusing.
Well, and Mark Martin says, winning when it's a surprise could actually be better than winning when you planned on it.
I mean, he's got to love where he's at right now. But right now, Denny Hamlin and these other guys, if the chase started tomorrow, they're all in trouble. RCR, Roush Fenway, and Joe Gibbs, they need to get their cars better and get competitive, because right now Hendrick has a dominant package right now.
In terms of saving fuel, who was the most impressive driver yesterday?
Well, the most impressive was Mark Martin, right? But here's the thing. If you look at these races in hindsight, everybody's an expert. And if you look at this race from a practical standpoint, Jimmy Johnson is a winner. He was going for the win. Greg Biffle has been very fast all year long, and he was going for the win. And Mark Martin, I think, has just got a lot of composure.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, I got to look at it. Mark Martin did a great job. He said, the one thing I liked about Mark, he said he couldn't run the pace. He was smart enough to say that I cannot read or run the pace to run up front. So, you know, he slowed it down, backed it up, and went on.
From the stands or from the TV, we can't tell, but as a driver, it's just not racing. And hopefully, when it gets down to the chase, it's just going to be wide open, no fuel mileage races.
Much more to come here on NASCAR Now. On the bubble, Jeff Burton is 3 points from falling outside the top 12. He's in danger, and so is this year's Daytona 500 winner, who's threatening to unseat them. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. is still winless. We break down the day that ended with him in 14th, and we talk about Junior's confidence, or lack thereof. It's next. The most talked about driver in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, Dale Earnhardt Jr. started the day in 30th, but mid-race started to question his abilities a bit.
The car has been too loose in and too loose off a great amount. Whenever we change, you need to undo it, get smart on it. Just looking at it, figure out, all right, here's when it started. He started talking about it, undo whatever that is.
They need to unchange what they changed. At that point in the race, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was running 14th, and that is exactly where he finished.
I had a pretty fun time out there. My car run really good, and Amp Energy NASCAR Chevrolet was real fast at the start of the race, and we worked on it and got it better and better, but just couldn't capitalize on it at the end of the race and get to top 10, and we thought we had coming, but trying to save fuel at the end. We really weren't racing hard and trying to pass people, so we give a couple spots there, and not as many people ran out as we thought would. But we were pretty happy with what we learned today and how things worked for us. We still obviously got a step or two to go, and we both know that, and we're working hard, and the team's real positive, so we just try to keep our attitude going in the right direction.
Left 134, he almost had a crisis confidence. More on that coming up. Despite hopes that Lance McGrew would instantly turn things around at the 88, Dale Earnhardt's chances of making the chase have increasingly grown more remote over the last 3 races. Since McGrew took over atop the pit box, Junior has actually lost 52 points on 12th place in the standings. He is now 255 out of the chase cutoff. Junior said, "We worked on the car all day. At one point, we had it really good, but we fell off." And that is the theme for Dale Earnhardt Jr. Why is he consistently falling off at the end of the race?
Well, first of all, this is not going to be a quick fix, and you have to be reasonable. The first thing that happens to a driver when he loses confidence is he loses confidence in his car and then in himself. So to regain that, it works inversely. He needs to regain confidence in his car. He'll run better, and as he runs better, he'll regain confidence in himself. The problem is right now is that everybody wants a quick fix. It's not going to happen that way because Dale Jr. started too far behind.
I agree, too. It takes time to get that confidence in that thing, but he did not fall off in this race. At Dover, Junior ran the top 5. At the end of the race, fell off way back. But this weekend, he ran 12th to 15th almost the whole race. So I thought that was an improving kind of deal to get his car that good, or consistent anyway.
Yeah, I think we're all confused on what everybody wants out of Dale Earnhardt Jr. You know, as Boris, as you and I talked about earlier today, hey, a 15th place finish is pretty good in a cup race, but we want miracles out of Junior. It's not going to happen, folks. It's going to take a little while to get it all sorted out if he even wins a race this year. You know, but at least, I mean, top 15's not a bad deal. It's just we're wanting miracles out of the guy.
And he is getting closer to getting his 4th top 10 of the season. And he says, and Lance McGrew, who joined us yesterday on NASCAR Now, said, we are seeing some improvement. What do you think you've seen so far that makes you think he's improving?
What I've seen that I like the most is I've seen a great attitude from Dale Earnhardt Jr. He comes to the racetrack ready to practice, ready to qualify, ready to race. And I think the key for him here is that as he regains confidence, his tolerance for that car being tight or loose will get broader. In other words, the reason he's not going as fast at the end as he might like or his crew chief might like is that he's not as tolerant with the car as, say, Jimmy Johnson, whose confidence is sky high.
And I think coming into this weekend on a road course, he's a great road course racer. We were teammates in the past. I think coming into Sears Point with a Hendrick car for the first time, I think Dale Jr. could easily be in the top 10 this weekend, and I think that'll put a swagger in his step.
Second time. Not to correct you or anything, but whatever. Let's talk about some of the other guys in the field. Matt Kenseth, going into the day, even though he started 16th, was one of the drivers because of Roush Fenway's dominance and his 2 previous wins at Michigan that people had pegged to possibly go for the win. He didn't win. Matt was only able to finish 20th. Moving on to David Rudiman. David Rudiman's quote at the end of the day was, "We had a terrible, terrible day. Problems all weekend long," and it continued on Sunday when Rudiman said his car was, quote, evil loose. He finished 19th. And then we go to Casey Kane, who really, truly ran strong all day long for Richard Petty Motorsports. The problem is he ran out of fuel at the end, and so instead of finishing in the top 10, Casey Kane would fall back all the way to 21st. The top 3 drivers stayed the same in points, though Gordon did cut into Stewart's lead, shaving off 24 points. Kurt Busch and his former Penske teammate Ryan Newman, they swapped spots for 4th and 5th. Mark Martin was the day's big mover from 13th to 8th. Jeff Burton is just hanging on to his spot inside the top 12. He's 3 points ahead of David Rudiman in 13th and only 43 ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya with a road course coming up next. Montoya, check out his numbers. In the last 6 outings, he has scored 4 top 10s. We had to Sonoma. How much of an advantage is it if you are a road course guy like Juan Pablo?
Well, Juan Pablo, it's going to be a big advantage because this is where he won his first race, so I think he's going to be really good at Sonoma, but he's got to keep this consistency up through the year. He's got tracks like Bristol and Martinsville and tracks like that, so that's going to be really where we need to see the improvement.
When or if he goes into the top 12, that means somebody else has to fall out of the top 12. Anyone look suspicious to you?
Well, I have to look at Jeff Burton right at the moment. You know, the RCR cars are struggling just a little bit. He's 12th in the points right now. We're only talking a 7 or 8 point. Now, this can all cycle back around. I mean, I think we're going to see that 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th position going to swap itself a lot before we get to the chase.
I disagree. I think that top 12 is set. I mean, Jeff Burton's going to come to Sears Point. He's a great road racer, too, so I don't see anyone in the top 12 that's going to come out.
Ricky, earlier in the day, you said David Rudiman, who is 3 points out of the top 12. He's the driver that just won't go away. What do you think the rest of his season is going to look like?
Well, I think you should see progression. And the fact is, he's been fast all year. He's got a win. All of that works in his favor. And I kind of like Mike's point, although I'd never bet against Jeff Burton. He's got 10 bonus points this year. That means he's led 2 races. The RCR as a group does not have raw speed. And I tell you, nothing cures your problems like having horsepower and speed.
And if he would make the chase, he'd be missing the all-important 10 bonus points for actually winning a race. Coming up next, Kyle Busch left without speaking to anyone Sunday, but he was equally unhappy after his first 2 races of the weekend. We'll talk about his weekend on the whole.
There have probably been more races won and lost at this racetrack by misfiguring your fuel here at Michigan.
We'll get a fuel mileage run this first stint. Hopefully work our way to the front.
Long day here, guys. Long day. Let's just be solid, do what we do, and we'll be in good shape.
43 drivers ready to get down to business here this afternoon. Green flag is in the air. Already 3 wide for the lead in turn 1.
Real edgy off already, almost loose.
Jimmy Johnson charges to the outside lane. He's got the lead.
Good job, bud. Really good. Keep digging on that thing. Get us a big cushion as you can.
7 seconds. That's how far out front Jimmy Johnson is.
The 16's going to be second place. He's definitely the second fastest car on track.
Keep an eye on that number 5 car. He's got one of the best race cars out there right now.
It's pretty good, pretty fast.
Oh, trouble spinning. One car is up and into the wall.
David Stremme slams into the barriers filled with water.
Mark, stop and get fuel and tires. We got to save because we're about 3 short. 4,600 seconds saving fuel from the time we drop you.
Pit road is now open, and here come the leaders.
Full, Richard. Be ready. Go. No, nothing coming. 40, 50, nothing coming.
It's Greg Benson who takes over the lead at this point.
Nice, guys. Nice work. How bad are we off on gas?
About 2 right now. I know we can say that much if we get out there.
Here they come off turn number 4. Green goes in the air. We'll have some 44 laps remaining.
That would be a stretch for anybody to make it the distance on fuel.
Man, I'd love to win, but I don't want to run out. We need points bad.
Good for it. We'll be good.
Laps short, are we? 2 laps of gas from the beginning of the run. 2 laps.
Here's Jimmy Johnson now, and he has trimmed the deficit.
Oh, man, go get him, dude. I'm trying. I'm sideways. Calm down. He's fine. Everything's fine. Run it like you need to, buddy. Run it like you need to here. Let's go. Hey, man, but he's catching me.
He's got a good run on him this time off, too. New leader, Jimmy Johnson.
Nice and easy. Hey, some gas there, bud. He's not letting out much, man. I can't let off. Running out. Why does this happen to us every damn time?
Jimmy Johnson's off the throttle. He may be out of fuel.
Biffle around the outside lane. Can he make it home?
Save a little bit. 20 car lengths back to Mark.
Biffle's out of gas. Martin taking the lead in turn number 3.
We got him, baby. Yeah.
What an eventful final lap. Mark Martin is going to win for the 3rd time this year.
Woo! I can't believe we won. Man, it's a good thing we were just conservative today.
That's what being sport gets you right there, buddy. Gotta be sport. You're the best at it. Smartest out there. You're awesome.
And if the chase began today, the leaderboard would look a whole lot differently. Mark Martin and Kyle Busch, 8th and 9th in points right now, would be the leaders courtesy of their 3 wins apiece this season. Johnson and Kenton would fall in line next, both with 2 wins. Stewart, Gordon, and Kurt Busch get 10 points each for having 1 win this season. Ryan Newman, Carl Edwards, Jeff Burton, and Greg Biffle would all fall in place after that. No wins. Scoring his 3rd win of the season with driver Mark Martin is crew chief Alan Gustafson, who joins us now. When this season began, especially the way it did with Mark sitting on the top 35 bubble, how did you imagine the build-up to the chase going for this team?
Well, we just knew we had a big mountain to climb. We had some bad circumstances at the beginning of the year, and just trying to stay focused. We had fast cars and didn't get the finishes with motor issues and blowing a tire at Atlanta. And we knew we had to dig out of it, so we just stayed focused and tried to be consistent and win a few races. And we've battled back. I don't think we're safe yet, but we're in a lot better position than we were at the beginning of the year.
Alan, as Boris said, what I'm wondering is the last few years it seems like it's been in vogue to hire these young kids, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. You've worked with Kyle Busch in the past. What's the difference between working with an old veteran like Mark Martin and a guy like Kyle Busch?
Well, I think they're both really exceptional. Those guys are very rare. I think they're 2 of the best in the sport, and when it's all over with, I think Mark's definitely going to be one of the best ever, and I think Kyle's on his way to doing that too. So they're both really special, but Mark's so talented and so good, and has so much experience and smart, a lot of self-control, and knows what to do in a race car. So I think Mark's got everything. He's got the whole package. He's got the talent, the skill, the speed, the intelligence and experience. I think Kyle's got a lot of it, and with experience, I think he'll have it all too. But Mark's just puts you on the money really quick. He knows what he needs out of his car, and he really knows how to take care of it. And now he knows how to save fuel too, so that's a good thing.
Hey, Alan, this is Ricky Craven. Congratulations, outstanding start to your season here. Any one of us who've raced with Mark appreciates and has high regard for his abilities. And I'm curious, from another view, what does Mark Martin, as a driver, do to help you become a better race car, better crew chief?
He does a lot. Everything that he does, he's so dedicated to. He's so determined to be successful. He's so focused. He's just got incredible talent behind the wheel of a race car. He knows his car so well. He knows how to get his car to a good position on the racetrack, what line he wants to run, where he wants to be, how he wants to do this, where the car needs to go over a run. So with all that experience, he just helps you understand what you need to do. And when he gives you such clear direction, it's a lot easier to achieve. But he also helps, he's helped me handle a lot of situations throughout my career, even with Kyle. Mark was a guy that I talked to a lot on how to handle certain situations and circumstances, and kind of hear a driver's side of it. And how to deal with it and take care of it. So he helps on all fronts. He's really a great guy. He helps our team from top to bottom. And I always say, everybody who's around Mark's better for it. So he's just a real special guy.
Hey, Alan. Mike Wallace. Congratulations. We've all echoed that so far, so great job. One thing I'd like to know from you is Mark Martin himself has been known as a really good chassis guy for years. You know, kind of knows the shocks, knows the spring, sway bar. Has that made your job easier as a crew chief, and how has it helped you?
Yeah, he's very good with the race car. You know, we just need to get him close. I think that's the biggest thing. When we get him close, he can really fine-tune it from there. And when you get close, you're really competitive. He can just put you right on the money with, I need a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. You know, if he's not calling the adjustment, he can lead you right to the adjustment and say, I need my car to do, you know, this on entry or this on exit, or when I pick up the gas, it needs to do this. And he'll give you really good feedback on what's happening with the car. So his experience and his chassis knowledge definitely plays into it. I think that helps him drive the car too. You know, he knows dynamically what's happening with the car, so he can adjust what he's got to do to get the most out of the car, whatever the situation is, if he's tight or if he's loose or if he's struggling with certain characteristics. I think he can adjust how he drives because he understands the car so well.
Alan, earlier you said that Mark now knows how to save fuel. He said earlier that at Pocono his car wasn't good enough to be in a position where he could challenge for the win and save fuel. What was it about the car yesterday that allowed you guys to be in that position?
Well, yeah, he's exactly right. You know, Pocono, we had a car that was decent and we could get out and run, but we just were kind of holding on to our track position. The car didn't roll the corner as good as we wanted it to, and so that hurts. You know, when the car doesn't roll the corner as good as you want it to, and you've got to slow it down, then you've got to use that much more throttle to accelerate it. So at Michigan, our car was really good. He could really roll through the center of the corner really fast and pick up the throttle later and carry more speed. So the car rolled so good, he didn't have to use as much throttle to accelerate it. That allowed him to save.
3 wins this season with his driver Mark Martin. Alan Gustafson, thanks for your time today and congratulations.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Coming up next, a rough week for Johnny Benson ended with the reigning Truck Series champ both out of a ride and in a Michigan hospital. An update on his condition coming up. And setting records in Kentucky, how Joey Logano held off his teammate and put his own name in the Nationwide Series record books again.
Hi, I'm Joey Logano, driver number 20, Home Depot Toyota, and you're watching NASCAR Now on ESPN2.
If we go back and look at the Nationwide Series race, Joey Logano is on pole for the Meyer 300. Kyle Busch, his teammate, starts second, and the fans still giving him a hard time for that guitar smash. Green flag out. Lap 1, Busch going to pass Logano, takes control early. He would lead 162 of 200 laps. Lap 147, Carl Edwards makes a green flag pit stop, penalized for speeding off pit road, would serve the penalty, would drop all the way to 20th. More on the speeding penalties coming up. 18 laps to go. Mike Bliss side by side with Jason Leffler. Bliss loses control, hard into the wall, heavy front end damage, and that is going to bring out the red flag. Guys come to a stop. We go forward, 10 to go. Kyle Busch leading, but here comes Joey Logano on the inside for the lead. Logano pulls away, takes the checkered flag, wins back-to-back races at Kentucky, his second Nationwide Series win of the year. But this puts him in the record books, the first driver in the Nationwide Series to ever win 2 straight at Kentucky. Kyle Busch maintains his point lead. In fact, it is the biggest of the season so far over Carl Edwards. Edwards now trails by 137 points. Brad Keselowski gained a spot on Jason Leffler for 3rd. The highest placing rookie, Justin Allgaier, up 2 spots into 6th. But here's the one I like. Joey Logano, despite having only 12 of 14 starts, he's 5th in the points this season.
This place just fits me. I tell you, I just like it, and we're fast every time we come around here. So sometimes we're really loose, and it just kind of depended on what set of tires we had. I think we had one bad set of tires that kind of killed us at first pit stop. So you know, I think after that we just kind of saw what we had, got caught down or got caught speeding up pit road. My fault, and to overcome that, that's huge. So it's just awesome. I really wanted this one.
Joey Logano, as we mentioned, is the first repeat winner at Kentucky. There were 27 speeding penalties on pit road on Saturday night, 25 of them for speeding exiting pit road. Carl Edwards was tagged for it 3 times. Now, Nationwide Series Director Joe Balish said that absolutely nothing was wrong with the scoring system, yet several drivers, including Carl Edwards, said that's really not possible. Carl said after the race that after he was tagged the first time, he was extremely cautious the next few times. What do you think? Are they doing something wrong, or is there something wrong with the system?
Well, I believe Carl Edwards, because I think the driver never wants to look silly twice, and so they discipline themselves to do anything but speed a second time. But a lot of times when they're guilty, they dispute it, even while they're traveling down pit road, and could be preoccupied with it.
Well, Nicole, I know one thing. Joe Balish, if there is a problem, he'll correct it. There was a scoring error at Montreal last year. I was in the middle of it. I went and complained after the race. I said, Joe, there's a problem. I'm leaving. You call me on Monday and tell me if it was right. You know what he called? Says, we found an error in the scoring loops. We fixed it, you know, readjusted the deal. So there could have been a problem. It sounds like there was. There's not normally that many speeding penalties. So I think they'll find it and fix it.
What do you think?
I think it's highly unusual. I mean, I've never seen Carl Edwards 3 times he got caught speeding on pit lane, so I think there might have been something wrong. The 27, I've never heard of anything like that.
You almost have to work to do that, don't you?
Yeah, you'd think. The police would have liked that. That would have been some good revenue.
Absolutely. Joey Logano not only got the win, but he held off his teammate to get to the lead and then to keep it. What did he prove to anyone that night?
Well, I mean, Joey Logano just proves that he's a heck of a good race car driver, and he got 2 Joe Gibbs Racing Team cars that ran first and second. I mean, you could see the Gibbs cars have been fast for the last 2 years. You see them driving by, you know, right there by Busch, and kid's got talent.
Boy, that's a hard pass. Passing underneath a car, particularly Kyle Busch, who's not going to give you anything. I think he gained a lot of credibility amongst his peers.
I think for himself, he got a lot of confidence because Kyle Busch, everyone talks about him. He's the fastest guy in any car he gets in. But Joey Logano stalked him, was smarter, saved his tires, and passed him at the end. So I think for Joey Logano, just gives him a lot more confidence.
Well, for Kyle Busch, it started off as a very busy weekend because he was in all 3 races. It started off Saturday in Michigan in the Truck Series race. Matt Crafton entered the day as the points leader. We go to lap 8. Kyle Busch going to make his move. 3 wide past Todd Bodine and Ron Hornaday. Busch takes the race lead. But on lap 28, trouble for Ron Hornaday. Check this out. The 33 spins after contact on the track. But Hornaday and that KHI team, they head to the pits, make repairs. Hornaday finishes 7th, lap 24 to go. Kyle Busch on the inside gets pinned by the lapped truck, Norm Benning. Colin Braun in the 6th on the high side, takes the lead, pulls away, and never looks back. Brown, is his first ever win in the Truck Series, but that man right there, Jack Roush, goes into the Truck Series victory lane for the 50th time. Matt Crafton is still the points leader. He holds a 39-point lead over Ron Hornaday. The 3 closest guys to Crafton, all former Truck Series champions, Hornaday, Skinner, and Bodine. Kyle Busch was the biggest mover, up 7 points into 5th. And keep in mind, he also has missed 2 races this season. Saturday night in Marne, Michigan at Berlin Raceway, Johnny Benson, the Truck Series champion, taking part in a super modified race. He wrecked on lap 2, had to be extracted from the car. He was taken to a Grand Rapids area hospital where he still is today, recovering from some injuries.
I don't know a lot about it other than I did hear he was, injured, pretty bad, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. I hope, he's going to be fine.
I'm not sure what his injuries are, but certainly we're thinking about you. Knew about it first thing this morning, and I hope you get well soon.
A lot of us are thinking about Johnny Benson, and I want to say hi to Johnny. I know he's in the hospital. He got hurt in a super modified crash last night, so just want Johnny Benson to know we're thinking about him and get feeling better.
It's like a family member that you don't ever want to see something like that happen, and certainly racing with Johnny over the years, I really hated to hear that, and I'm really hoping that he comes out of it okay.
A statement was released on JohnnyBenson.com on Sunday night. Quote, "We would like to convey our gratitude for your concerns, thoughts, and prayers during this time. Benson remains hospitalized in fair condition, is expected to make a full recovery. Latest reports from the hospital in Grand Rapids say he's recovering from a few broken ribs, a broken wrist, and a punctured lung. But the good news is he is expected to make a full recovery." All 3 of you gentlemen have been in wrecks, some more serious than others. Boris, you were the one involved in a fiery crash most recently. How is the recovery process when you need to get back in the car eventually?
I mean, it's fine, but the most amazing thing about this sport is, these guys are so competitive. They'll trip each other to get to the snack bar first. But every time somebody gets hurt, it doesn't happen often, it becomes a family. Everybody pulls together. Any kind of help Johnny needs, I'm sure he's going to get from all the racing community. So even in my fire here, I've had so many people call in, so many emails, it felt like I should have been hurt worse because all these people called and said they're praying for me and doing things like that. But it really is a cool sport when the community all pulls together when something tragic happens.
What did you experience during your recovery?
Nicole, as a race car driver, you think about winning races, leading laps, you know, just testing everything but getting hurt. And when you get hurt, you don't really know how to act or what to expect. It's difficult, frustrating, and it's so nice to hear your peers reach out to you and wish you well, and I want to echo their sentiments to Johnny.
Well, we all want to wish Johnny well, and he's going to make a good recovery. The one thing that Johnny Benson, Borstead, Ricky Craven, myself, all drivers are doing, when you're sitting inside that race car, remember we're doing what we want to do. We're having the time of our life. We're not expecting to wreck. We're not expecting a tire to blow or anything like that. So unfortunately, there are those risks that come along with this sport. Johnny's case, hopefully he'll be recovered here shortly, be back in a race car before long, and go back at it again.
It was certainly a rough week for Johnny Benson, whose Red Horse Racing team had to fold because of the economy. He was out of the ride. Even Kyle Busch reached out to him before this incident and said, "I'd like to stick him in my truck before Milwaukee next week." So Benson, who had an opportunity to go and win a 4th straight race at Milwaukee, obviously that's not going to happen. But the interesting thing with your wreck, the fire around you, you said, calm down, don't breathe.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what happens when you wreck like that. I mean, really your instincts take over. And I panicked for a little bit when I was on fire. I was actually engulfed in flames for 18 seconds. And the only smart thing I really did is I kind of calmed down and did not take any breaths, because then you burn your lungs. You could get hurt if you inhale that hot air. So I was a little lucky in that respect.
Not the case with Johnny Benson. The reports are that he is suffering a punctured lung, bruised ribs, and a broken wrist. Johnny Benson, get well soon. Coming up next, Michigan International Speedway wasn't expecting a record crowd, but it did at least live up to minimal expectations. That's coming next in Hot Laps. NASCAR Now returns Tuesday right here on ESPN2. Mark Martin will join us live. We will also have a live report from the final Goodyear tire test at Indianapolis before the Brickyard. That's tomorrow at 5 Eastern. Right now on ESPN.com, Tony Stewart holds the #1 spot in this week's Power Rankings, but Ryan McGee says Carl Edwards is inching his way up. Check it out on ESPN.com.
The idea that NASCAR can cruise around, and do business in every state and not have some effect on this economy, and have the sponsorship business model and be tied to the manufacturers in the way we are, and to not feel that, that would be unrealistic to think that that would be the case. But what I have said, and I'll say today, when you look at it, and I look at this every day, we are doing better than most. We have some spots we want to improve on, and a lot of spots we want to improve on, but we will get through a tough time. And our fans are the most loyal in sports, and we'll do what we have always done, which is put the best racing in the world forward.
Time now to take a few hot laps. Brian France has certainly had a lot on his plate lately. Mayfield, the economy, GM making NASCAR-wide cutbacks, a drop in attendance, and that is where we start. The Michigan crowd, ghost town or sign of hard times in depressed area of the country. Ricky.
I thought it was good considering what you just mentioned. It's a depressed part of the country with all that's going on there.
It could be a small crowd, but they still say there was 90,000 people there. We're just expecting 140 at all these races anymore.
It was a small crowd, but that last lap was exciting. I was on the edge of my seat.
Well worth it. Well, on the heels of GM announcing NASCAR-wide cutbacks, France says he's now open to seeing other foreign manufacturers getting into NASCAR. Is this because it's generally good for the sport, or is this out of an economic desperation for NASCAR?
I think it's both. I think it would be good for the sport, but I think that this is forcing people to adjust how they do business.
I agree with Ricky. I mean, it's a financial crisis right now because some of the teams have already lost their financial support from some of the manufacturers. They need that money. It's in their budget to keep going. They need to open it up if possible.
I think it's monkey see, monkey do. I mean, Toyota's here. They're really successful. And the biggest competitor for Toyota in America is VW. They want to come into this country. So I can see VW and Honda maybe trying to come in and emulate what Toyota did.
And as long as we have you here, your team made a big announcement at Daytona earlier this year. You're running in Sonoma this weekend, but not with that particular announced team. What's the deal with the economy in that particular announcement?
Well, it just takes a lot longer. I mean, Rick Clark Motorsports is going to be the first. They're going to buy 51% of our No Fear Racing team. They're going to be the first African-American majority-owned minority team in Sprint Cup racing. That's a mouthful. Mm-hmm. But I think by the end of the summer we'll get that deal done, and hopefully it'll be more races for me, and I'm looking forward to that deal. But right now we're going to Sonoma with John Carter. We've kind of merged our efforts, and I think it'll be a good deal this weekend, the 08 Ford Fusion.
I just understand if you run in the top 10 at Sonoma this weekend.
I know where this is going.
I've been told Nicole is going to straighten your hair.
Look,
is that
every time I go into the makeup room here, they say, let's straighten your hair, let's straighten your hair. When you get a bunch of girls hanging around, they want to do crazy things. So I said, if I finish in the top 10, the next time we're on, I'll let them straighten my hair.
Nicole.
Ladies in the makeup department.
Next topic.
Yes,
Can we talk
okay.
about racing?
And that next topic is Carl Long. He made his final appeal to NASCAR today for that massive $200,000 fine for having too big of an engine. Is this a waste of time? Or are you guys still trying to figure out that they even had another chance to appeal?
I don't like extreme things like straightening people's curly hair or $200,000 fines. I think it's extreme.
Come on, NASCAR, let him go. Just let's put it under the rug. He just doesn't need to pay that money. Carl Long is good for the sport. He's an independent. He'd mortgage his house just to show up at the racetrack. $200,000 is crazy. And I just sent my check last week for $100, so I hope you get it.
I think
all the fans need to get together and pay that fine.
I have to agree with Boris. No need to echo it. He doesn't need to pay that money. He can't afford it.
Sonoma next week, and the first time we go both left and right. It will also be the first time we see double file restarts on the road course. Disaster waiting to happen, or is this going to make for better racing?
Both. This is a setup. I'm telling you that the Pocono, Michigan, led all these drivers to believe that they can just roll down into those corners, 2, 3, 4 wide. They're going to have to discipline themselves, Boris, and you know better than anybody. This is potentially a recipe for disaster.
As much as drivers hate fuel mileage racing, I think at Sonoma we'd like it, because if it's a green-white checker with double file restarts, it is going to be intense for the fans and the drivers.
Okay, Boris, 1 to go, green-white checkered coming. You're running 4th. What are you going to do at Sonoma?
I'm going to be like a Doberman with a hand grenade in my mouth. I'm going to be a maniac, so watch out. I'm not points racing. I just want to win one of these races one of these days. Hopefully we have enough speed in our Ford Fusion.
I'm not even going to touch it. Finally, Mark Martin. Is this the year he finally wins a Cup championship, or is he the bridesmaid once again?
Well, you're not going to get me to change midstream. I'm still going with Jimmy Johnson, but reasons to believe Mark Martin has always been talented, smart. Now he's got this composure, which is really impressive. He's won 20% of the races this year, guys.
So's Kyle Busch.
It's good company.
I got to agree with Ricky on this one. I think it's amazing what you're doing, Mark Martin, but right now, I mean, you're going to have to beat Jimmy Johnson, and he clearly dominated the race in Michigan. He's got a lot of confidence. I think it's going to be a record-setting 4th championship this year.
We got 2 no's. Can we get a yes?
You're going to get a yes from me. It's Mark Martin's going to win the championships. Got all that veteran experience on him. Alan Gustafson, a young crew chief, got a lot of excitement. Mark Martin said everybody around his team is happy. Yeah. They're excited.
This crew chief loves Mark Martin, and I think that's worth a lot, isn't it?
Well, it is a lot. All that confidence.
Got to cut you off because I'm being told we're running out of time.
All
Coming
right.
up next, how long will the Mark Martin celebration continue? How about next week into Sonoma? Are these guys, like they said, into the end of the season? We make our early predictions next. Some sad news before we go. NASCAR Mexico driver Carlos Pardo was killed yesterday in the closing laps of a race in Pueblo that's just east of Mexico City. Pardo was leading the race when he was bumped from behind and sent violently into the pit lane retaining wall. He hit the wall going at about 120 miles an hour. The race was red flagged, and Pardo was eventually declared the winner by rule. The time had run out on the race. The running order was reverted to the last order of completion, and Pardo had led that lap until he was killed. He was the 2004 NASCAR Mexico Series champion with 10 wins to his name. He was 33 years old, and Boris, you had some chance to know him.
Yeah, I raced in the nationwide race down in Mexico City the last few years, and he was there, and he was a really nice guy, and actually was at Sears Point in a testing crash and helped him out of the car, and it's just a shame. I mean, like I said before, I mean, it's a small community, but we're all our hearts are out to him.
And condolences to that family as well. Earlier in the show, we asked you which driver had the most improbable win this season. Brad Keselowski, David Rudiman, Mark Martin, or Tony Stewart. With 61%, Brad Keselowski, you win. Talladega, the most improbable win of this season. Time is running out. We want to know who's going to win next weekend. Ricky Craven, we start with you.
Tony Stewart leading the points, road course expert. My pick.
Kyle Busch, a lot of confidence, won the last 2 races on the road course.
Boris said, all you.
Jeff Gordon. Master there.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you for watching at home. NASCAR Now is back tomorrow, Tuesday, with Mark Martin and live reports from the Brickyard Tire Test. We'll see you at 5 Eastern right here on ESPN2. Have a great night.